The silence of space pressed against the windows of Luna Station Alpha 7 like an old friend. Kang Tae-woo had grown used to the quiet after 3 years alone on the dark side of the moon. His footsteps echoed through the metal corridors as he made his morning rounds, checking systems that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. The station had been built for a team of 12 researchers. Now only Tae-woo remained, keeping the lights on and the air flowing through sheer stubbornness and careful rationing of spare parts. The supply ship that was supposed to bring fresh crew and equipment had exploded during launch 3 years ago. Earth had promised to send another mission, but budget cuts and political changes meant that promise grew thinner with each passing month. Tae-woo stopped at the observation deck and looked out at the star field that never changed. Back on Earth, he had been Dr. Kang Tae-woo, respected xenobiologist with the Korean Space Agency. Here he was simply a man trying to survive while maintaining humanity's furthest outpost. His morning coffee was synthetic, bitter, and exactly the same temperature as yesterday. The food dispenser hummed and produced another packet of reconstituted protein that claimed to be beef, but tasted like cardboard. Still, it kept him alive, and that was enough. The station computer chimed softly. "Good morning, Dr. Kang. All systems, operating within normal parameters. No incoming transmissions from Earth." "Thank you, Arya." Tae-woo replied to the artificial intelligence that had become his only conversation partner. "Any unusual readings from the deep space sensors?" "Negative. Dr. Kang, the Andromeda observation array shows normal background radiation levels." Tae-woo nodded and suited up for his daily external inspection. The ritual had kept him sane through the long months of isolation. Check the solar panels, examine the communication dish, test the atmospheric processors. Each task was simple but necessary for survival. The lunar surface stretched endlessly in all directions, gray dust and ancient craters under the harsh light of distant stars. Earth hung in the black sky like a blue marble, beautiful and impossibly far away. Tae-woo had stopped looking at it months ago. It only made the loneliness worse. As he rounded the station's main hull, his helmet display flickered with an anomaly reading. The deep space sensors were picking up something unusual. Not debris or cosmic radiation, but an organized energy signature moving at incredible speed toward their position. Area, confirmed sensor reading bearing 270, elevation 15 degrees. Confirmed Dr. Kang. Unknown object approaching at 0.6 light speed. Impact with lunar surface estimated in 17 minutes. Tae-woo felt his heart rate spike. After 3 years of nothing but routine maintenance and scientific observation, something was finally happening. Whether it was good or bad remained to be seen. He hurried back inside and pulled up the tracking data on the main console. The object was decelerating rapidly, too rapidly for any human technology he knew about. Whatever it was definitely not from Earth. Area, activate all recording systems. Document everything. Recording systems online, Dr. Kang. Shall I attempt to contact Earth? Tae-woo hesitated. Communications with Earth took hours each way, and by the time any message arrived, whatever was happening would be over. Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The object streaked across the star field like a dying comet, trailing, energy that made the station's radiation detectors scream warnings. It was larger than he had first thought, roughly the size of a small spacecraft, but its energy patterns were unlike anything in Earth's databases. The impact came 12 minutes later. Even from 50 kilometers away, the station shook as the unknown vessel plowed into the lunar surface, creating a new crater in the ancient landscape. The seismic readings suggested the object had survived the crash largely intact. Tae-woo stared at the impact site through the station's telescope. Twisted metal gleamed in the starlight. Definitely artificial, but following no design principles he recognized. And there was something else. A faint glow emanating from the wreckage that pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. Area, prepare the rover for immediate deployment. I need to investigate the crash site. Dr. Kang, protocol requires Earth authorization before approaching any unknown objects or phenomena. Protocol assumes Earth is available for consultation. Tae-woo replied, already suiting up again. This is first contact protocol. I'm the senior officer on site and I'm making the decision. The rover kicked up clouds of lunar dust as it carried him across the gray landscape toward the crash site. The glow was stronger now, visible even through his helmet's protective filters. As he drew closer, details became clear that made his scientist's mind race with possibilities. The vessel was definitely alien in origin. Its hull was smooth and organic-looking, as if grown rather than built. But scattered around the impact crater were 10 smaller objects that glowed with internal light. They were pod-shaped, roughly the size of large suitcases, and made from some kind of translucent crystal that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Taewoo parked the rover at the crater's edge and approached on foot. His radiation detector clicked steadily but showed no dangerous levels. Whatever energy the pods were generating, it wasn't harmful to human life. Through the crystal walls of the nearest pod, he could see something that made him stop breathing. Inside was a creature unlike anything that had ever lived on Earth. It was roughly the size of a house cat, but clearly reptilian, with scales that shifted color in the pod's internal light. Small wings were folded against its sides, and even in what appeared to be suspended animation, there was an intelligence in its features that spoke of awareness far beyond any animal. A dragon. There was no other word for it. 10 small dragons, each in its own life support pod, apparently the sole survivors of whatever disaster had destroyed their ship. Taewoo knelt beside the first pod and placed his gloved hand against its warm surface. The creature inside stirred slightly, as if sensing his presence. For the first time in 3 years, Kang Taewoo was not alone on the moon, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he smiled. Taewoo spent the next 6 hours carefully moving all 10 pods into the station's main laboratory. Each pod weighed more than expected, as if the crystal material was denser than it appeared. The internal glow pulsed steadily, like a slow heartbeat that never wavered. He arranged the pods in a circle on the lab floor, each one connected to the station's power grid through hastily rigged cables. The pods seemed to accept the electrical input, their glow brightening slightly as they drew energy from the station's fusion reactor. Area, run full spectrum analysis on the pod materials and the creatures inside. Analysis complete, Dr. Kang. The pod structure appears to be a biosynthetic crystal matrix, composition unknown. The creatures inside show complex neural activity, consistent with higher intelligence. Life signs are stable but weakening. Taewoo leaned over the first pod, studying the small dragon inside more carefully. Its scales shifted from deep blue to silver as he watched, responding to some internal rhythm. The wings were delicate, almost transparent, with what looked like star patterns woven through the membrane. 3 days passed with no change. Taewoo monitored the pods constantly, adjusting power levels and environmental controls. He talked to them during his lonely meals, describing life on Earth and wondering about their distant home. On the 4th day, everything changed. The first pod cracked with a sound like breaking ice. Taewoo rushed from his morning coffee to find hairline fractures spreading across the crystal surface. The glow inside pulsed faster, more urgently. "The life support is failing," he whispered, reaching for the emergency medical kit. Area, prepare, the isolation chamber, sterile environment, variable atmosphere controls. The pod split open with a soft chime, releasing a cloud of silver vapor that smelled like ozone and starlight. The small dragon inside took its first breath of station air and immediately began to panic. It was smaller than Taewoo had expected, no bigger than a kitten, but its distress was heartbreaking. The creature pressed itself against the far wall of the pod, eyes wide with terror, making soft chirping sounds that sounded almost like crying. "Easy, little one," Taewoo said softly, approaching slowly with his hands visible. "You're safe now. I won't hurt you." The dragon's scales flashed bright red, clearly a warning display. When Taewoo took another step forward, it opened its mouth and produced a small puff of what looked like glowing mist. Not fire exactly, but definitely some kind of defensive mechanism. Taewoo sat down on the floor several feet away, making himself seem smaller and less threatening. He had spent years studying animal behavior on Earth, and the principles seemed to apply here too. Patience, consistency, and respect for the creature's fear. "My name is Taewoo," he said quietly. I found you after your ship crashed. I've been taking care of you for 4 days now." The dragon's head tilted slightly as if trying to understand his words. Its scales gradually shifted from warning red to a more neutral blue-green color. The chirping sounds became softer, more questioning than distressed. Hours passed. Taewoo sat motionless, occasionally speaking in gentle tones, letting the dragon get used to his presence. Slowly, very slowly, curiosity began to overcome fear. The dragon took a tentative step toward him, then another. Its movements were graceful despite its obvious weakness, and Taewoo could see intelligence in its large eyes that reminded him of dolphins or great apes. When the creature was close enough to touch, it stopped and made a new sound. Not chirping this time, but something almost like humming. And suddenly, impossible as it seemed, images appeared in Taewoo's mind. Visions of a world with purple skies and crystal cities. Thousands of dragons soaring between towers that reached into the clouds. A civilization of incredible beauty and complexity, built on harmony between technology and nature. Then the images turned dark. A great shadow spreading across the sky, consuming stars and planets. The desperate flight of the last survivors, including the 10 small dragons now resting in his laboratory. A final message of hope sent toward a distant galaxy where other intelligent life might offer sanctuary. The mental connection lasted only seconds, but it left Taewoo breathless with wonder and sorrow. The dragon had shared its people's final moments, their last desperate hope for survival. "You're refugees," Taewoo whispered. "Your whole world is gone." The dragon made that humming sound again, and this time the emotions that came with it were unmistakably gratitude. It understood that he understood. Taewoo slowly extended his hand, palm up. The dragon approached carefully and brushed its small snout against his fingers. The scales were warm and surprisingly soft, like touching living silk. "I'll call you Byul," Taewoo said. "It means star in my language, because you came to me from the stars." Byul settled down beside his hand, finally relaxing for the first time since awakening. The exhaustion of 4 days without sleep suddenly hit Taewoo, but he didn't move. For the first time in 3 years, he wasn't alone. Over the next week, Byul grew stronger and more trusting. The dragon followed Taewoo around the station, perching on his shoulder during routine maintenance or curling up nearby while he worked at the computer terminals. The mental images became more frequent and clearer. Byul showed him how their biotechnology worked, growing tools and structures from living crystal. How their society had valued knowledge and cooperation above all else. How they had studied the stars for thousands of years, always hoping to find other intelligent species. In return, Taewoo shared his own memories. Life on Earth, the diversity of human cultures, the beauty of oceans and forests that Byul found fascinating. His work as a scientist, his dreams of exploring the galaxy, his loneliness on the moon. Most painfully, he shared memories of Lee Da-eun, his research partner, and the woman he had loved. She had died in the supply ship explosion that stranded him here, and the grief still felt fresh after 3 years. Byul seemed to understand loss. The dragon pressed close to him during those difficult memories, offering wordless comfort that helped ease pain Taewoo had carried alone for too long. But their peaceful time was running out. The other 9 pods were showing signs of failure, their glows dimming despite the power he fed them. Soon, more dragons would awaken to find themselves in an alien world with only one human to protect them. Taewoo looked at his small companion and made a silent promise. Whatever it took, he would keep them safe. The second pod cracked open during the night cycle, waking Taewoo from the first peaceful sleep he had enjoyed in years. Byul chirped urgently from his perch on the nightstand, his scales flashing with worried colors. This dragon was different from Byul. Larger and golden-colored with broader wings and a more regal bearing. Even weak from the pod, it carried itself with natural authority. Taewoo approached carefully, but this dragon showed less fear than Byul had. "Another friend," Taewoo said softly. "Welcome to Lunar Station." The golden dragon studied him with intelligent amber eyes, then looked at Byul. A series of musical sounds passed between them, clearly some form of communication. Then the new dragon touched Taewoo's mind with images. This one was older, a leader, among its people. The mental name it shared translated roughly as Hansol, meaning great leader in ancient dragon tongue. Through the telepathic link, Taewoo learned that Hansol had been responsible for organizing the escape from their dying world. "You saved them all," Taewoo said with respect. "You're the reason they survived." Hansol's response carried deep sadness. Only 10 had escaped from a civilization of millions. The weight of that loss showed in every graceful movement as the dragon explored its new environment. Over the next 3 days, 3 more dragons awakened. Each one brought new personalities and abilities that amazed Taewoo. Minnie was silver-colored with healing powers that she demonstrated by fixing a cut on Taewoo's hand with a touch of her snout. The wound closed completely, leaving not even a scar. Jae-sung was copper-colored and seemed to understand the station's technology instinctively. He spent hours studying the computer systems, his small claws somehow interfacing directly with the electronic displays. Within a day, he had improved the station's efficiency by 15%. Yujin was pure white with an almost ethereal quality. She moved through the station like a ghost, appearing and disappearing in ways that defied explanation. Taewoo suspected she could phase through solid matter, though he couldn't understand how. The dragons communicated with each other through musical sounds and shared mental images. With Taewoo, they used the telepathic link, though it seemed to require effort on their part. Gradually, he began to understand their language and culture. They were the Drakmari, an ancient species that had achieved perfect harmony between biological evolution and technological advancement. Their civilization had lasted 50,000 years, built on principles of cooperation and knowledge sharing. They had never known war or hatred, only the patient pursuit of wisdom and beauty. But their galaxy was dying. A massive expansion of dark matter had begun consuming everything, starting with their galaxy center and spreading outward like a plague. No technology could stop it. The only hope was escape to another galaxy where life might continue. "Your people sound wonderful," Taewoo said during one of their evening conversations. He had gotten into the habit of sitting with all 5 awakened dragons, sharing meals and stories. "I wish humans could have met them." Hansol's mental response carried warmth. "Humans are much like us. You show the same curiosity, the same desire, to help others. We chose well when we aimed for your galaxy." But all was not well. The remaining 5 dragons were weakening in their pods, despite all of Taewoo's efforts. The biosynthetic crystals were breaking down, their glows fading day by day. Worse, the 5 awakened dragons were showing signs of sickness. Area. Medical scan on all dragon subjects. Scans complete, Dr. Kang. All subjects show declining cellular function. The station atmosphere appears to be incompatible with their biology over extended periods. Taewoo felt his heart sink. He had saved them from the crash only to watch them slowly die from environmental poisoning. Earth's atmosphere was toxic to them, and he had no way to recreate their homeworld conditions. But the dragons had not given up. Through their shared mental link, they began teaching Taewoo their advanced sciences. Technologies that humanity wouldn't discover for centuries were shared freely, desperately, in hopes that his human ingenuity could find a solution. Jae-sung showed him how to manipulate matter at the molecular level using harmonic frequencies. Minnie demonstrated biosynthetic healing that could repair any damage to living tissue. Yujin revealed the secrets of quantum phase shifting that allowed movement through solid barriers. Most importantly, Hansol shared the knowledge of atmospheric processors that could create any planetary environment within a controlled space. The technology was beyond human science, but perhaps not beyond human determination. "I need to rebuild the entire station," Taewoo realized after days of studying their shared knowledge. "Create separate environmental zones for each of your needs." "The task is beyond one person," Hansol replied through the mental link. "Even with our guidance, the work would take years." "Then we better get started," Taewoo said firmly. He began that very day tearing apart non-essential systems to cannibalize their components. The mining equipment became molecular assemblers. The communication arrays were converted to harmonic frequency generators. Even the backup life support systems were sacrificed to create the foundation for dragon-compatible habitats. Working 18-hour days with only brief periods for sleep and food, Tae-woo began the most ambitious project of his life. The dragons helped however they could, their small size allowing them to access tight spaces while their advanced knowledge guided every modification. But time was running short. 2 more dragons awakened, both critically weak. Haewon was deep, purple with abilities related to energy manipulation, while So-young was green with a talent for biological systems. They could barely move and their breathing was labored. "We're losing them," Tae-woo whispered to Byul during a brief rest period. His first dragon friend pressed close, offering comfort and determination through their mental bond. "Humans do not give up. You will find a way. We believe in you." Looking at his family of 7 dragons, each one trusting him completely with their lives, Tae-woo made a promise. He would work until his body gave out if necessary. They had come so far across the void of space to find safety. He would not let them down. 3 weeks into the reconstruction project, Tae-woo collapsed from exhaustion while installing the 7th atmospheric processor. He woke up in the medical bay with Min-ae perched on his chest, her silver scales glowing softly as she used her healing abilities to restore his strength. "You cannot work yourself to death," Hansol's mental voice carried gentle but firm authority. "We need you alive to complete this." Tae-woo sat up slowly, feeling better than he had in days thanks to Min-ae's care. Around the medical bay, all 7 awakened dragons had gathered, their concerned chirping filling the small space with worried music. "The last 3 pods are failing faster," he said. "If I don't get their habitat ready soon, then we work smarter, not harder," Jae-sung interrupted, his copper scales flickering with determination. "You have been doing everything alone. Let us truly help." What followed was the most remarkable collaboration between species in human history. The dragons used their phase-shifting abilities to install components in impossible spaces. Their harmonic manipulation allowed them to fuse materials at the molecular level without heat or tools. Most amazingly, they could interface directly with the station's computer systems, controlling dozens of processes simultaneously. Yujin proved especially valuable. Her quantum phasing allowed her to move through the station's walls and hull, installing external components that would have required dangerous spacewalks. She worked tirelessly, her white scales glowing brighter whenever she used her abilities. The transformed station began to take shape. The main laboratory became a central hub surrounded by specialized habitat domes. Each dome could maintain different atmospheric pressures, gravity levels, and energy patterns. Biosynthetic gardens began growing from dragon-provided seeds, creating living ecosystems that cleaned the air and provided food. Area. Status report on all habitat systems. All systems functioning at 97% efficiency, Dr. Kang. The new biosynthetic components are integrating well with existing station infrastructure. But their success came just in time. The 8th pod cracked open during a violent storm of crystal fragments, releasing a dragon so weak it could barely move. This one was deep red with scales that seemed to hold tiny flames, and Tae-woo immediately moved it to the newly completed fire element habitat dome. The dragon's name was Bo-ram, and she possessed abilities related to energy creation and thermal regulation, but she was critically ill, her body struggling to adapt after the long journey. For 3 days, Min-ae worked constantly to keep Bo-ram alive while Tae-woo fine-tuned the habitat conditions. "She needs something we can't provide." Min-ae's mental voice carried frustration. "Her species requires a specific mineral compound that doesn't exist in the solar system." Tae-woo studied the chemical analysis that Jae-sung had provided. The mineral was incredibly complex, requiring precise atomic arrangements that seemed impossible to create artificially. Then, he remembered something from his university days. A professor had mentioned theoretical work on matter synthesis using controlled fusion reactions. It was far beyond human technology, but with dragon knowledge. "Jae-sung, can you help me modify the fusion reactor?" Dangerous work, the copper dragon replied. But possible. We would need to create a controlled environment for atomic manipulation. They spent 2 days converting part of the reactor chamber into a matter synthesis lab. Using harmonic frequency generators and biosynthetic catalysts, they created humanity's first artificial mineral synthesizer. The process was incredibly energy-intensive, but it worked. Boram began recovering within hours of receiving the synthesized minerals. Her scales brightened, and she was soon able to communicate through the mental link, sharing her gratitude and wonder at human determination. The 9th dragon awakened 3 days later. Wu Jin was pale blue with abilities related to water and atmospheric control. He was weak but stable, and the water element habitat dome was ready for him. Unlike the others, Wu Jin seemed fascinated by human technology, spending hours studying Taewoo's equipment modifications. Your species builds with such interesting methods, Wu Jin shared through the link. Crude materials made elegant through clever design. Very different from our biosynthetic approach, but equally valid. Only one pod remained, and it was failing rapidly. The 10th dragon was dying before it could even awaken, its life signs fading despite every effort to maintain. The crystal matrix. Taewoo worked frantically to prepare the final habitat dome, but time was running out. We're going to lose her, he said during another sleepless night. He had been working for nearly a month straight, sustained only by Mine's healing abilities, and his own stubborn refusal to quit. The other 9 dragons gathered around the final pod, their combined mental voices creating a harmonious song that seemed to strengthen the failing life inside. For a moment, the glow brightened, and Taewoo dared to hope, but it was not enough. The 10th pod went dark during the early morning hours, its crystal structure crumbling into lifeless powder. Inside was a dragon smaller than the others, with scales that shifted through every color of the rainbow. She had been the youngest of their group, barely past childhood by dragon standards. The grief that filled the station was overwhelming. 9 dragons mourned their lost sister while Taewoo sat beside the empty pod, feeling like he had failed when success was so close. You saved 9 of us, Han Sol said gently through the mental link. Without your efforts, all 10 would have died. Do not carry guilt for what was beyond anyone's power to change. The funeral was simple but moving. They scattered the crystal, powder in the station's central garden, where biosynthetic plants would incorporate it into new growth. The youngest dragon would become part of the living ecosystem that sustained her surviving family. Over the following weeks, the station transformed into something unprecedented. Each habitat dome became a perfect recreation of different aspects of the dragon's homeworld. The central garden connected them all, creating a unified environment where both human and dragon could thrive. Taewoo established his own living space adjacent to the garden, where he could interact with all 9 dragons easily. They had become his family in every way that mattered, and he had become theirs. But their peaceful existence was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Long-range sensors detected ships approaching from Earth, still months away but coming with intentions that would test everything they had built together. They will want to separate us, Han Sol said during one of their evening gatherings. Take us away for study and experimentation. Taewoo looked around at his family, 9 incredible beings who had trusted him completely with their lives. They had shared their most advanced knowledge freely, asked for nothing but safety and companionship in return. Then we'll have to show them a better way, he said quietly. Prove that cooperation works better than exploitation. The months ahead would determine whether humanity was ready to join the wider galaxy as a species worthy of respect, or whether fear and greed would destroy the most important relationship in human history. The Earth fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning, their ships appearing as bright dots against the star field that gradually resolved into 5 military vessels. Taewoo watched from the observation deck as they took position around Lunar Station, their weapons trained on his home. Lunar Station Alpha 7, this is Admiral Park Sung-ho of the Earth Defense Force. Dr. Kang Taewoo, you are ordered to prepare for immediate evacuation. All alien specimens are to be secured for transport to Earth research facilities. Taewoo looked at his 9 dragon companions, each one tense with worry. They understood enough human language to know what the Admiral's words meant. Beale pressed, close to his side, scales flickering with anxious colors. "Admiral Park, this is Dr. Kang. The beings you call specimens are sentient refugees with their own rights. I cannot and will not turn them over for experimentation. Doctor, you have been alone too long. Your judgment is compromised. These creatures represent the greatest scientific discovery in human history. They belong in proper research facilities, not in the hands of one man." Through the station's enhanced communication system, built with Dragon technology, Tae-woo could see the lead. Ship's bridge. Admiral Park was a stern man with cold eyes who looked at the Dragon's shared images with obvious greed rather than wonder. Behind the Admiral stood Director Kim Dong-hyun, the bureaucrat who had taken control of Earth's xenobiological programs during Tae-woo's absence. Kim had always believed that aliens would be either weapons to be used or resources to be exploited. "Dr. Kang, you will comply with evacuation orders within 6 hours. Kim's voice carried absolute authority. "Refusal will result in forced extraction." Tae-woo closed the communication channel and turned to his family. The Dragons had arranged themselves in a protective circle, their combined mental voices creating a harmony of determination and loyalty. "We will not abandon you." Hansol's thoughts carried unshakable resolve. "You saved us. Now we save you. I won't let them take you," Tae-woo promised. "This is our home now." What the Earth forces didn't know was how much the station had changed. Dragon technology had transformed Lunar Station Alpha 7 into something far beyond human engineering. The hull was now reinforced with biosynthetic crystal matrices that could absorb and redirect energy attacks. The power systems had been upgraded to levels that could supply a small city. Most importantly, the Dragons had defensive capabilities that no human military had ever encountered. The first probe came 2 hours later. A boarding shuttle approached the docking bay, expecting easy entry to an undermanned research station. Instead, it encountered shields that flickered with rainbow colors as Yujin and Woojin combined their abilities to create barriers of phased matter and controlled atmosphere. "Sir, we can't penetrate their defenses," the shuttle pilot reported. "The docking bay is sealed by some kind of energy field." Admiral Park's response was predictably aggressive. "All ships, target the station's power systems. Minimal force to disable, not destroy." The energy beams lanced out from 3 ships simultaneously, expecting to overload the station's fusion reactor and force a surrender. Instead, the beams struck Haewon's energy manipulation fields and were absorbed completely, their power fed back into the station's systems. "Impossible," Kim breathed. "No human technology can do that." "Exactly," Tae-woo replied over the open channel. "This isn't human technology anymore. It's something better. A partnership between species." The Dragons began demonstrating their true capabilities. Jae-sung interfaced with the Earth ship's computer systems, causing their weapons to malfunction and their navigation to go haywire. Minnie projected healing fields that prevented any permanent damage to equipment or crew, showing mercy even to those who threatened them. Boram created thermal effects that made the ship's hulls too hot to touch, forcing the crews to retreat to central compartments. So Young manipulated the biological systems aboard the ships, causing nothing worse than mild nausea, but proving that they could do much more if they chose to. "You see?" Tae-woo explained as the Earth fleet struggled with systems that no longer obeyed commands. "They could destroy your entire fleet without harming a single person. But they won't, because they're better than that. Better than us, in many ways." The standoff continued for hours. The Earth ships couldn't approach the station, and their weapons were useless against Dragon-enhanced defenses. But they also blocked any escape, trapping Tae-woo and the Dragons in their transformed home. Then Cho Hae-won's voice came over a private communication channel. She had been Tae-woo's colleague years ago, and now served as a diplomat with the Earth government. "Tae-woo, it's me, Hae-won. I'm aboard the flagship. Can you talk privately?" Relief flooded through him. Hae-won had always been reasonable, more interested in understanding than controlling. "I've been studying the data you transmitted," she continued. The technological advances alone are incredible. But I'm more interested in what you've built there. A true partnership between species. They're my family now, Taewoo said simply. And I'm theirs. I know. I can see it in the way they protect you. The question is, can you help me convince the others that cooperation is better than conquest? Together, they developed a plan. Instead of fighting the Earth forces, they would demonstrate the benefits of alliance. The dragons began sharing selected technologies, small advances that could revolutionize human medicine, energy production, and space travel. Jae-sung showed how molecular manipulation could create materials stronger than any human alloy. Min-A demonstrated healing techniques that could eliminate most diseases. Bo-ram revealed energy systems that could power entire continents without pollution, but they shared these gifts carefully, proving that they came from beings of incredible wisdom and benevolence, not from captured specimens to be dissected and studied. Look at what they've accomplished, Hee-won argued with the fleet commanders. One human working with 9 aliens has advanced our technology by centuries. Imagine what we could achieve with willing cooperation instead of forced captivity. The Deesai tide began to turn when the dragons saved the Earth fleet from a meteorite storm that would have destroyed several ships. Instead of using their enemies' vulnerability against them, they extended their protective shields to cover all the vessels, asking nothing in return but the right to live in peace. Admiral Park was forced to admit that the beings he had come to capture were not only sentient but more moral than many humans he had known. What do you want? He finally asked. Recognition, Taewoo replied. Acknowledgement that they are refugees deserving protection, not specimens for experimentation. Partnership instead of exploitation. And in return? Hansol's mental voice carried dignity and hope as he spoke through Taewoo's translation. We offer our knowledge freely to any human who proves worthy through compassion and wisdom. We ask only for the chance to rebuild our culture and help both species reach for the stars together. It was the beginning of a new age for humanity, though few realized it yet. The greatest test was over, but the real work was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the standoff with the Earth fleet, and Lunar Station Alpha 7 had grown into something that would have been unrecognizable to its original designers. What had started as a simple research outpost was now a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers, home to over 300 humans and dragons working together. Taewoo stood in the central observation deck, watching the latest group of human students arrive for their training in dragon-human cooperation protocols. The young people came from every nation on Earth, selected not for their academic achievements but for their capacity for empathy and wonder. Another batch of hopefuls, Byul said, his mental voice warm with amusement. Now fully grown he was, the size of a large dog, his scales having settled into a permanent pattern of deep blue with silver highlights. He perched on Taewoo's shoulder as he had years ago, though now his weight required careful balance. They're eager, Taewoo replied, watching the students press against the transport ship's windows to get their first glimpse of dragons in flight, just like I was when I first saw you. The integration process had not been easy. Earth's governments had struggled with the reality of truly intelligent non-human life. Some had wanted to weaponize dragon technology. Others had demanded that all dragons be brought to Earth for protection in controlled environments. But Hee-won had proven to be a skilled diplomat. Now serving as Earth's first interspecies relations coordinator, she had negotiated agreements that protected dragon rights while allowing for careful, voluntary technology transfer. The key had been proving that dragons chose their human partners, not the other way around. Each dragon formed a unique bond with 1 or 2 humans who demonstrated the right combination of patience, intelligence, and moral character. These partnerships became the foundation for all scientific collaboration. Status report from the Andromeda Project. Area announced. Her artificial intelligence now enhanced with dragon biosynthetic components that had given her something approaching genuine consciousness. Put it on the main screen, Taewoo said. The holographic display showed humanity's first intergalactic vessel, the cooperation between human engineering and dragon wisdom that everyone simply called Hope. The ship was beautiful beyond description, its biosynthetic hull flowing like living artwork, while its hybrid propulsion systems prepared for the longest journey in human history. "Final system checks complete," reported Captain Lee Ji-hoon from the ship's bridge. He was bonded with a dragon named HFY, whose abilities with quantum mechanics had made faster-than-light travel possible. "We're ready to depart for the Andromeda galaxy." The mission was ambitious beyond anything humans had attempted before. Long-range sensors had detected other Dragon refugee ships scattered across the void between galaxies, their occupants still in stasis, waiting for rescue that might never come. Hope would be the first of many ships designed to bring these survivors to safety. But the mission had revealed something else. The dark matter expansion that had destroyed the Dragon's home galaxy was spreading faster than predicted. It would reach the Milky Way in perhaps 30 years, not the 50 they had originally estimated. "The evacuation plans are proceeding ahead of schedule," Han Sol reported through the mental link he now shared with Tae-woo and 12 other human partners. The Golden Dragon had become something like an ambassador, representing dragon interests in the complex negotiations between species. Humanity was facing the greatest challenge in its history. Millions of people would need to be relocated to other galaxies before the dark matter wave arrived. It would require a level of cooperation and technology that neither species could achieve alone. "The Australian site is ready for its first dragon colony," Minnie announced. The Silver Dragon had been working with human medical researchers to create hybrid healing centers that combined the best of both species' knowledge. Her work had already eliminated several diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. The Baomar integration was not without problems. Some humans remained fearful of dragons, spreading conspiracy theories about alien invasion and mind control. A few radical groups had even attempted attacks on dragon-human facilities, though their crude weapons were no match for biosynthetic defenses. More challenging were the philosophical debates. Dragons lived for thousands of years and thought in terms of centuries-long projects. Humans were impatient, wanting immediate results and quick solutions. Finding middle ground required constant negotiation and compromise. "Dr. Kang, incoming message from Earth Council," Arya announced. The hologram shifted to show the assembly chamber where representatives from every nation debated humanity's future. At the center of the discussion was the proposal that had consumed political attention for months: the establishment of permanent human colonies in the Andromeda galaxy. "The motion passes," announced Secretary General Wang Li-ming. "Humanity will establish our first intergalactic colonies within the next 10 years. Dr. Kang, your station will serve as the primary training facility for colony administrators and Dragon-Human Partnership specialists." Tae-woo felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. The lonely researcher who had stumbled upon 10 alien refugees was now responsible for preparing humanity for its greatest adventure. "We're really doing this," he said to his dragon companions. "We're going to the stars together." "As it should be," Yujin replied, her white scales shimmering as she phased partially into the wall behind him. "No species should face the dark alone. Together we are stronger than any force in the universe." The celebration that night filled the station with music both human and dragon. The biosynthetic gardens glowed with bioluminescent patterns that responded to the dragon's emotional states, creating a light show of pure joy and hope. Later, as the festivities wound down, Tae-woo found himself alone in the memorial garden, where they had scattered the remains of the 10th dragon years before. The biosynthetic plants had grown into fantastic shapes, incorporating the young dragon's essence into living art that changed with the seasons. "She would have loved this," Biol said softly, settling beside his human partner. "Seeing our peoples united working toward the stars. I think about her sometimes," Tae-woo admitted. "Wonder what abilities she might have had, what contribution she could have made." "She made the greatest contribution of all," Han Sol said, joining them in the garden. "Her sacrifice taught us that every life has value, that we must work together to save what we can. Without that lesson, perhaps the integration would not have succeeded." A soft chime announced another arrival at the station. Through the transparent walls they could see a transport approaching with its running lights arranged in the pattern that meant carrying dragons. More refugees had been found drifting in the void, awakened from their crystal pods by human rescue teams. Busy day tomorrow, Taewoo said with a smile. New dragons to welcome, new partnerships to form. The work never ends, Buell agreed. But that's what makes it worthwhile. As they watched the transport dock, Taewoo reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A lonely human and 10 desperate refugees had somehow become the foundation for an alliance that would carry 2 species to safety among distant stars. The universe was vast and often dangerous, filled with forces that could destroy entire civilizations. But it was also filled with possibilities for cooperation, understanding, and hope. In his final log entry that night, Taewoo wrote, 5 years ago, I thought I was alone on the edge of human space, forgotten and abandoned. I never imagined that my greatest discovery would not be about the stars, but about family. Not the family we're born with, but the family we choose to create. The dragons taught me that home isn't a place or even a species. It's the bonds we forge with others, the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than ourselves. Tomorrow, we begin training the next generation of explorers who will carry that lesson to other galaxies. The dark may be spreading, but so is the light. And as long as humans and dragons stand together, no force in the universe can extinguish the flame of hope we've kindled among the stars. Outside his window, the earth hung in the black sky, no longer looking distant but connected by invisible bonds of partnership and shared destiny. And in the biosynthetic gardens, new growth reached toward the stars, carrying the dreams of 2 species into an infinite future.